Ciao.
That says sponsored by Remote HQ. Collaborate like you're in the same room. Go to remotehq.co/minutes for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the code MINUTES for 3 months free. That's Remote HQ.
While he was examining me, he grabbed me by the wallet and he said, cough. Another man walked in, the doctor. He said, you're going to live to be 60. He said, I am 60. What'd I tell you?
Driving it wrong. That's what Steve Jobs would have said back in the day. If you hit something with it. Well, by virtue of the fact that you're driving. See, there's one of the services that they could have, by the way. Peter Cohen is here with us, everybody. Peter Cohen. Forgive me, man. I automatically trip into Peter Cohen of, XYZ. Let's say Peter Cohen, wow, are we saying Twitter at this point? You're there, but you're not there the way you were there at one point, but you're there more now than you were 6 months ago. Do you want to tell people where to find you on Twitter just in case?
Schrodinger's Twitter account?
I guess.
I'm at Flarg, Flargh.
We didn't talk about this yesterday, but I'm kind of curious. What do you think of the idea is Apple not selling a car that Peter Cohen can buy, but offering a car that Peter Cohen can, hit an app and call up? Rather than Apple trying to replace Tesla, Apple trying to replace Uber or Lyft. What do you think of the car as a service?
I would be very happy with the car as a service. I'm tired of car ownership. I feel like it's a burden, and I don't want to be, saddled with it.
Yeah, when I was in my 20s, my teens and 20s, and practically lived in my car, which is not to say that I slept in my car, but I was constantly in my car, that idea would sort of horrify me. And then I lived in big cities that had public transportation. And I could really get used to not having to worry about, finding a place to park and things like that. Of course, public transportation is going to have a hard time now because of #these uncertain times and the breathing next to people and the sitting next to people and all that. We weren't going to talk about services as far as like the car is concerned originally. We were going to, however, talk about services. So Loop Ventures principal Gene Munster wrote up this big thing last week talking about how Apple is going to lean harder into services. He had a bunch of ideas for services they could do. Stocks Plus, Health Plus, Everything Plus, because that indicates service at this point. And I asked you if there was anything that you had in mind as far as a service you would like to see Apple to get into. Like, what would be a service of your dreams that Apple could do?
It's interesting because they're at this inflection point where they're offering more meaningful information to us about than ever about our health status from our products, right? We're getting more information from our Apple Watches. We're also investing a lot more of our financial life with Apple as well. I got to be honest with you, Ken. I'm not sure how much more comfort I have letting Apple give me services. I know that sounds odd because I'm so invested in the ecosystem in so many other ways. But, at the end of the day, I have to ask myself, how much of my life do I want to give over to this one organization? And what is my reason for doing it? I ask myself that every time Apple rolls out a new product or service. Do I need to use this? Is this actually replacing something useful in my life that I'd be doing otherwise? And sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes, sometimes the answer is no, I don't want to use this. I don't have an Apple Card, for example. Okay. Because I don't want to incur more debt.
Right.
There's some Apple iCloud services that I don't use. Apple TV Plus was not of any interest to me before I actually got, a free trial. So I think we need to be very circumspect about whatever it is that Apple is going to get into next when it comes to services, because there's no question it's going to expand services. It's been this huge growth area for the company year after year after year. But we need to be very mindful of it and make sure that Apple's making the right decisions in how they do it.
All right. Okay. All of that aside, sorry, I'm not trying to get you into something, but I guess what I'm wondering is there a service that you would like to see them get into, that you would go ahead and do that? Like maybe okay, I pulled back on these other things because if they did that or if they did that well. I mean, basically go the same way that we went on the car yesterday when I said, why? And you said, because, right? I mean, let's take the rest of that off the table and just say, is there a service that you would like to see Apple take whatever acumen you've seen so far, turn it to that service, and that would end up being a better thing?
Yeah, I mean, in my ideal world, I'd like to see some sort of raw communications infrastructure competition for the hegemony that we've got right now. If Apple came out with a better way of communicating that was faster and more ubiquitous, that was how I could invest all of my internet connectivity.
Okay.
That would be very interesting to me. So something that would cut Comcast out of my life completely, I guess, is what I'm really trying to say.
Okay, so that's the kind of thing I was wondering about. Like, are you talking about 5G or 6G? Are you talking about something like Google Fiber, or are you talking about a completely new technology? Are you saying you would like to see them go ahead and put in the backbone, whatever the backbone happens to be? Or are you saying, I want quantum computing, but in my phone?
It could be a MacGuffin. It could be a 5G solution that was scalable and reliable and so on. It could be last mile fiber. It could be any one of those things. But, the U.S. especially, and I'm looking at this from my perspective, as a U.S. citizen, as are you, that our communications infrastructure is so horribly lacking, especially compared to a lot of other countries that are, countries that in the world. Mm-hmm. It would be nice if they're going to leave it to corporate interests to do this stuff, for somebody to actually do it right instead of patchwork and piecemeal and hack together.
Coming up, I make Peter listen to what service I want from Apple. But first, a word from Remote HQ, letting you collaborate as if you were in the same room. A while back, I went to another city, actually a couple of cities over from where I am. It took about an hour and a half. I went there for a meeting, which we could have done over the phone, except we all wanted access to the same whiteboard. We all wanted to be able to make notes together. Today, we might do it for the company because of all the social distancing. Of course, we can't because we're all social distancing. If that meeting was happening today, we could do it with Remote HQ. Remote HQ gives your group access to the kinds of things you'd have if you were together. A whiteboard anybody can write on, a shared web browser anybody can control, notes anybody can add to, plus access to apps your team's already using like Google Docs, Miro, Dropbox, and more. So even if you can't be together, you can work together like you're together. Try it out with your team. Go to remotehq.co/minutes for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the code MINUTES for 3 months free. Give Remote HQ a try. Go to remotehq.co/minutes for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the code MINUTES for 3 months free. And now more of our services talk with Peter Cohen. Can I tell you mine? Because I've wanted it for years and I still want it and I keep wanting it and it keeps not happening. Yeah, but I keep thinking if I put it out there to the universe, then maybe it will eventually.
Law of attraction. Yeah.
I would like to see them tackle healthcare. I don't just mean health stuff. I mean healthcare. And part of me thinks that's ridiculous. That's far too big to think about. But we spent yesterday talking about automobiles. And the automobile thing is not a small thing. Like it's bigger than the phone. I don't mean as far as like the amount of money. I mean, there was nothing like iPhone before iPhone. There were smartphones, but there was nothing like iPhone. They remade an entire industry. And, there was nobody really fighting against them exactly. I mean, BlackBerry scoffed. Windows had its own ideas, but there was nothing really, there was no entrenched power saying you can't have a phone like the phone you're trying to do. I would imagine that there would be a certain amount of pushback against whatever Apple might actually do as far as health as a service. But here's the thing. We have to pay for health as a service now anyway, and health as a service, for the most part, sucks right now. You may have a good doctor. You may have good caretakers. You may have good things around. I told this story here sometime this summer, or maybe early in the fall. I had to go to the doctor for something. And nobody could tell me how much it was going to cost before I went in. And it wasn't because they weren't sure what they were going to have to do. They knew exactly what they were going to have to do. I was going in for a particular thing. And nobody, neither the doctor nor my insurance company, could tell me how much it was going to cost. They could bill me after. And it ended up costing more than I thought it might, or costing less, than I thought it might. So that ended up working out for me. But I went in blind in a system that has like all these different moving parts, all of which I need to be able to, maintain health and well-being. I would like to see somebody come in, and remake that, because that just seems, the way it's set up right now. Well, I can't even say the way it's set up right now. It's more like a coral reef, the way it has grown on top of itself and on top of itself and on top of itself right now. I don't know whether it's sustainable or not, but I really can't imagine that it's the best way that could be done.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really have a healthcare system per se in this country, and it would certainly be advantageous to have something under some level of control. But here's the interesting thing to me. Here's the thought experiment. Remember years ago when Gene Munster of Loop Ventures, whose name you referenced at the start of the segment, had his attention focused elsewhere in Apple's ecosystem. He predicted that it was just a matter of time before Apple released a television set.
Yes.
That was Apple branded. And that never came to pass.
Yeah.
And this isn't to disparage Gene Munster's vision of the future, but what did happen is that Apple built Apple TV into everyone else's sets.
Right.
So sometimes Apple comes at you with the solution and it's oblique. It's not the solution that Apple answers the need that you have without giving you the solution that you ask for specifically.
You're deep.